My sister didn't just ruin my wedding. She stole our parents' future. I know this because I found the bank statements. They were hidden in an old shoebox in her closet, underneath a pile of sweaters. Page after page showed my parents' retirement money draining away, moving into an account with her name on it. My name is Kimberly Williams, and I'm 28 years old. I used to be a simple girl from a small town in Ohio. I believed in working hard and loving your family more than anything. I took extra shifts at the diner for years to help my parents save, dreaming of the day they could finally rest. But that dream is dead. If you have ever been hurt by someone you trusted with all your heart, someone who was supposed to protect you, I need you to please subscribe to my channel. Your support is like a hand on my shoulder, telling me I'm not alone. And I promise you what I did next is something you will never, ever forget. So I planned a wedding. It was a beautiful, expensive wedding at a lakeside mansion. My fiancé Michael knew a little but not everything. My sister Clara was my maid of honor. She helped me pick out my dress, her eyes full of fake tears as she told me how beautiful I looked. She had no idea. Clara always wanted what she didn't have. She was jealous that our parents helped me with community college, even though I paid back every single penny. She saw their life savings not as their security, but as her inheritance. She thought she was so clever, so good at hiding her greed. The wedding day was perfect. The sun was shining and our family and friends were all smiling. As I walked down the aisle, I saw my parents looking so proud. My heart ached for them. They had no idea their other daughter had left them with nothing. I had to be strong for them. Then came the moment. As Michael and I stood at the altar, ready to say our vows, the lights in the grand hall flickered and died. The romantic music cut off, plunging us into darkness and silence. I heard the guests gasp. I turned and saw Clara in the shadows, a tiny wicked smile on her face. This was her final act of jealousy. Her way of ruining my perfect moment. But a deep rumble started outside. It grew louder and louder, vibrating through the floor. It wasn't thunder. It was the roar of powerful engines. Clara's smile vanished. Her face turned pale as she stared at the giant oak doors. Before I tell you what was on the other side of those doors, please, take a moment to comment where you're watching this from. I believe that when good people connect, good things happen. May you and your family always be protected by loyalty and blessed with honesty. Clara froze when she heard the roar, but I didn't. I smiled in the darkness. That sound wasn't a surprise to me. It was the sound of justice. She thought she had cut the power to my wedding, but she had just signaled the beginning of her own nightmare. And it was all going according to my plan. The giant oak doors of the mansion flew open. Two big men in heavy work jackets stood there, their faces serious. Behind them, the flashing yellow lights of a massive tow truck pulsed in the dark, lighting up the shocked faces of my wedding guests. The roar was the sound of its engine, a beast waiting to claim its prize. The men walked right down the aisle, their boots heavy on the polished floor. They didn't look at me or my fiancé Michael. They walked straight towards my sister, who stood frozen like a statue. One of the men held up a piece of paper. "We're looking for Clara Williams," he said, his voice echoing in the silent hall. Just 3 months ago my world had fallen apart. I was helping Clara paint her new apartment, the one she said her boss gave her a huge bonus for. I moved an old bookshelf, and a box tumbled down, spilling papers everywhere. Bank statements, dozens of them. My parents' names were on the top. My heart stopped. I saw our parents' life savings, the money for their little retirement home by the sea, moving in big chunks. Transaction after transaction, all going into one account. An account with my sister's name on it. The paint roller fell from my hand, splattering white paint on the floor like spilled milk. Now, seeing the color drain from Clara's face, I felt a cold, hard calm. The roar outside wasn't just for a car. It was for the cherry-red convertible she drove, the one she bragged about constantly. She told everyone her new boyfriend, a man nobody had ever met, bought it for her. What would you do if you found out your own sibling stole everything from the people who gave you life? Would you forgive them? Or would you make them pay? The car was just the tip of the iceberg. The car was bait. What I really wanted was something she couldn't hide. Something that would expose every lie she had ever told. One of the men started to read from the list. We're here to repossess the vehicle, a 2025 Genesis X convertible. He paused, then kept going. As well as the assets purchased with the fraudulent loan secured against your parents' retirement fund. The guests gasped. The lie about the rich boyfriend was now dead. Clara finally found her voice. She started to cry, big fake tears rolling down her face. She looked at our parents. Mom, Dad, I don't know what this is. It's a mistake. Then her eyes locked onto mine, filled with pure poison. Kimberly, you did this. You were always jealous of me. Our father, a man who never raised his voice, stepped forward. His face was a mask of confusion and pain. He looked at his crying daughter, then at the serious men with their papers. He asked the question that hung in the air. Clara, he said softly, what is going on? What loan? Instead of answering him, Clara did the one thing I never saw coming. She pointed a trembling finger, not at me, but at the man standing beside me at the altar. My fiancé. It was him, she screamed, her voice cracking. It was Michael's idea. He helped me do it all. Every head in the room swiveled to look at Michael. His face went white. His hand, which was holding mine just moments ago, felt cold and limp. He stared at my sister, his mouth slightly open, as if he couldn't believe the words she had just said. The air grew thick with suspicion. I squeezed his hand, a secret signal we had practiced. Was I shocked? No. I was ready. My sister was like a cornered animal, and cornered animals will bite anyone to escape. She thought she could take Michael down with her, ruining my past and my future in one single hateful breath. I remember the night I told Michael everything. We sat in his small apartment, the box of my parents' bank statements between us. Tears streamed down my face as I explained how Clara had bled them dry. His first reaction was pure rage. He wanted to call the police right then and there. We have to stop her, Kim. We have to get them their money back now, he had said, his hands shaking. But I told him no. Police report was too simple, too quiet. I needed everyone to see Clara for who she was. I needed a confession. And Michael, after seeing the pain in my eyes, agreed to my plan. But now, in the dark wedding hall, my father's eyes were filled with doubt. He looked from his crying daughter to the man I was about to marry. A father's heart wants to believe his child. Clara knew this. She used their love as a weapon. How can you fight an enemy who wears your family's face? He told me how to do it. Clara wailed, pointing her finger at Michael again. He knows all about computers. He showed me how to hide the money transfers. He said we could run away together after he married you for your part of the inheritance. The lie was so specific, so poisonous it felt real. Michael finally broke his silence. That's not true, he shouted, his voice cracking. I would never do that. Sir, he said, turning to my father. I love your daughter. I was helping her expose a crime. But his words sounded weak against Clara's tears. The guests began to whisper amongst themselves. I let go of Michael's hand and took a step forward. I walked past my sister, past my heartbroken parents, and stood in the center of the aisle. I looked at all the confused faces staring back at me. I had their full attention. My sister is a liar, I said, my voice calm and clear. Then I turned to face Michael. But she is right about one thing. Michael knew all about the stolen money. A collective gasp filled the room. Michael's eyes widened in fear. He had no idea what I was about to do. This part of the plan was mine, and mine alone. I reached into the small satin bag tied to my wrist and pulled out a small black remote control. And now, I announced to the silent crowd, you are all going to hear exactly what we planned. I pressed a red button. From a hidden speaker, Clara's voice filled the room, cold and clear from a secret recording. Don't worry, her voice said. They'll blame Michael for everything. Clara's recorded voice was colder than ice. The sound echoed through the mansion, bouncing off the walls and into the silent, listening ears of our friends and family. My sister's real face, the one she hid behind smiles and fake tears, was finally being shown to the world. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no sound came out. The recording continued. It was a phone call I had recorded 2 weeks ago. I called her using a blocked number, pretending to be a man from a company that helps people hide money. I told her I knew what she was doing and that I could help her hide it better for a price. She took the bait. "He's the perfect person to blame," her voice on the recording sneered, talking about Michael. "Everyone knows he's a computer nerd. And Kimberly is so in love, she won't know what hit her. By the time she figures it out, I'll be long gone. Mom and Dad. They'll just be sad, old people with nothing." I watched my parents. My mother covered her mouth with a trembling hand, her eyes closing as if she couldn't bear to see the truth. My father, a strong man who had worked his whole life in a factory, sagged against a pillar. The sound of his own daughter laughing about his ruin broke him. Have you ever had to deliver painful news to someone you love, just to protect them from a bigger hurt later on? It's the hardest thing in the world. You feel like the villain even when you're trying to be the hero. What else did I have planned for Clara? The recording was just the beginning. The voice on the speaker kept talking, revealing everything. Clara bragged about the fake document she created, the secret bank account she opened overseas, and the lies she told our parents about needing money for medical treatments. Every word was a nail in her coffin. She had left nothing to chance, and now neither had I. When the recording finally ended, the silence that followed was heavy and awful. No one knew what to say. The 2 tow truck men stood by the door, their job suddenly much more serious than just taking a car. They were witnesses now. Everyone was a witness to Clara's true nature. Then my sister moved. Her shock turned into pure rage. Her eyes were wild. She let out a scream that wasn't human, a sound full of hate and desperation. She lunged not at me but at my father. She grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. "She's lying, Daddy," she shrieked, her voice raw. "It's all a trick. Kimberly faked it. She used one of those AI voice things. You have to believe me. I'm your daughter." My father looked down at her, his face like stone, his heart visibly breaking. And then Clara did something that sealed her fate forever. She ripped open her small clutch purse, but she didn't pull out a phone or keys. She pulled out a passport and a one-way plane ticket to a country with no extradition treaty. It was for a flight that was leaving in 3 hours. The sight of the passport and the plane ticket sucked all the air out of the room. It was one thing to hear a recording, but it was another to see the proof of her escape plan in her own trembling hand. A one-way ticket to Brazil, a country famous for making it hard to get people back. She was never coming home. My father looked down at the ticket, then back at Clara's face, which was twisted with desperation. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just very slowly and very deliberately pulled his arm away from her grasp. It was a small movement, but it was the loudest thing I had ever seen. He was letting her go. That tiny action broke something inside Clara. Her last hope was gone. Her eyes darted around the room, wild and frantic, looking for an escape. She saw the open doors and the darkness outside. She shoved our father aside, a man she had just called Daddy, and made a mad dash down the aisle. She was fast, but the 2 men from the tow company were faster. They moved together, blocking the exit like a solid wall. She slammed into one of them and bounced back, falling onto the floor. Her white maid of honor dress was now dirty. She was trapped, a wolf caught in a cage of her own making. And then another sound started. It was faint at first, a distant cry in the night. But it grew louder and louder, a piercing wail that everyone recognized. Sirens. The flashing yellow lights from the tow truck were suddenly joined by pulsing waves of red and blue, painting the shocked faces of our guests in the colors of the law. What Clara didn't know was that I had visited the police station a week ago. I sat with a kind detective named Miller and laid out everything I had found. He told me it was a strong case, but to make it airtight, they needed a confession or absolute proof she planned to run. I promised him I would deliver both. The police cars pulled up to the mansion's entrance, their doors opening with a grim purpose. 2 officers stepped out, their uniforms crisp and official. They walked into the hall, their eyes scanning the strange scene. The bride in white, the crying parents, the wedding guests, and the woman sprawled on the floor. One of the officers, a woman with a calm, serious face, walked right up to my sister. She didn't have to ask who she was. "Clara Williams?" she asked, though it wasn't a question. Clara just stared up at her, breathing in ragged gasps. The game was over. She had lost. But as I watched my mother weep silently and my father stand like a hollow shell, I knew this wasn't a victory. Not yet. Arresting Clara was justice, but it wasn't a solution. My parents' money, their future, was still gone, hidden in some secret account across the world. This was only the end of the beginning. As the officer pulled Clara to her feet and snapped handcuffs around her wrists, my sister turned her head and looked straight at me. Her face was no longer desperate, but filled with a deep, cold hatred. "You think you've won," she whispered, her voice a venomous hiss. "You have no idea what's coming. Why don't you ask Michael about his other savings account?" Clara's words hung in the air like smoke, choking the little hope that was left in the room. "Ask Michael about his other savings account." I turned my head slowly and looked at the man I was supposed to marry. His face was a mask of pure confusion and shock. The police officers paused, their hands on my sister, waiting. "What is she talking about, Michael?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I wanted to believe it was just one last, desperate lie. But the way she said it, so sure of herself, sent a tiny splinter of fear into my heart. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it guilt? "She's lying, Kim. She's making it up to hurt us," he pleaded, taking a step toward me. But the police officer holding Clara just looked at him, her expression unreadable. They dragged my sister out of the hall, her hateful smirk being the last thing I saw before the great oak doors closed, leaving us in a terrible, echoing silence. The wedding was over. Our guests, one by one, came to give my parents a sad hug and then left quietly, not knowing what else to do. Soon, the giant hall was empty except for me, Michael, and my broken parents. My beautiful wedding dress felt like a costume for a play that had ended in tragedy. My father, who had been silent for so long, finally spoke. He didn't look at me. He looked at Michael. His voice was tired, worn down to almost nothing. "Michael," he said, "is it true? Do you have another account?" The question was soft, but it landed like a heavy stone. Michael's shoulders slumped. He looked at the floor. "Yes," he said, his voice quiet. "I do." My mother let out a small gasp, and my own heart felt like it had been squeezed. My perfect plan, my perfect revenge, suddenly had a giant crack running right through the middle of it. Clara's poison was working. "I was saving money," he said quickly, looking up at us, his eyes desperate. "It was a surprise. I was saving every extra dollar I made to help pay your parents back some of what Clara stole. I didn't want anyone to know until I had enough to make a real difference. It was supposed to be a gift. It was a beautiful reason, a perfect reason. And yet one question remained. How did Clara know about it? How could she use his kindness as a weapon against him?" My mother, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief, suddenly looked up. A memory had surfaced through her grief. "Michael," she said, her voice frail. "A few months ago, Clara asked me if you were good with money. She said she wanted to get you two a special wedding gift, something financial. She wanted to know which bank you used." A cold dread washed over me. Clara hadn't just been stealing. She had been digging. Michael's face went from confused to terrified. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a new horror. "Oh no," he whispered, shaking his head. "She didn't just ask about my bank. She asked for my social security number. She said she needed it to book a surprise honeymoon cruise for us. And like a fool, I gave it to her. The words "social security number" fell into the silence and shattered it. My mother brought her hand to her chest, stumbling back a step. My father just stared, his face a mixture of pity and a new, terrible suspicion. Michael had not just been kind. He had been a fool. And his foolishness now threatened to burn us all. "My phone," Michael stammered, his hands shaking as he fumbled in his tuxedo pocket. "I have to check the account. I have to see." He swiped frantically at the screen, his fingers slick with sweat. In that moment he wasn't my strong, confident fiancé. He was just a scared man watching his whole life crumble because of one lie. We all leaned in, watching over his shoulder. My wedding dress rustled against his suit as the banking app slowly loaded. Felt like an eternity. Each spinning circle of the loading icon was a turn of a knife in my stomach. What had she done? What had my sister, my own blood, turned his good deed into? I thought back to all the little moments. Clara asking Michael for help with his broken laptop. Clara laughing and calling him her favorite computer genius. She wasn't just being friendly. She was studying him. She was learning his weaknesses, looking for a door she could quietly unlock when no one was watching. The app finally opened. Michael scrolled down to his future fund, the secret account he had named for us. We all saw the number at the same time. 0. Perfect, clean, empty 0. Every dollar he had saved, every extra shift he had worked for us was gone. Vanished into thin air. If you have ever felt that sickening drop in your stomach when you realize you've been tricked, you know how Michael looked in that moment. It's a feeling of helplessness that steals your breath. How do you fight an enemy who is already gone? An enemy who used your own kindness against you. Michael collapsed into a nearby chair, dropping his head into his hands. "It's all gone," he whispered, his voice choked with disbelief. 2 years. I saved for 2 years. But I knew my sister. She wouldn't just take the money. She would use it to leave a scar. I took the phone from his hands. "There has to be a record," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. She couldn't just make it disappear. I tapped on the transaction history, my heart pounding against my ribs. I scrolled past all his small deposits, his hard-earned savings. And then I found it. One single, huge withdrawal. It was dated yesterday, the day before our wedding. My eyes scanned the details of the transaction, looking for a name or an account number. But I found something so much worse. The money hadn't been transferred to a bank. It had been used to make a purchase. I held the phone out for my parents and Michael to see. The description of the purchase was only 5 words long, but those 5 words were a death sentence. They read, "Global Wings Airlines, Flight 742, Brazil." Clara hadn't just stolen his money. She had used it to buy her escape. She had made my fiancé pay for her getaway. The screen on Michael's phone glowed with the 5 awful words. He had paid for his own betrayal. It was the cruelest joke I had ever heard. My sister hadn't just stolen from our parents. She had made my future husband pay for her to disappear with their life savings. It was a masterpiece of pure hate. My father walked over to the grand fireplace, which was dark and cold, and leaned against the mantel. He looked 100 years old. "It's gone," he said, his voice hollow. "All of it. She took it all." For the first time, I saw the man who had always been my rock look completely and utterly defeated. Michael stood up, his face pale. "I'm so sorry," he said to my parents. "I never should have been so stupid. I should have told you about the account. I should have seen what she was." He was blaming himself, which was exactly what Clara wanted. She was still hurting us, even from inside a police car. I walked over to Michael and took his hand. "This is not your fault," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "This is hers. She played on your goodness. We can't let her win by turning on each other. That's her final trap." But how do you fight a ghost who has already vanished with the treasure? The police would have Clara, but getting money back from overseas accounts is almost impossible. It can take years of fighting in courts, and most of it is never seen again. Clara knew that. She had planned for this. She believed she had created the perfect crime, leaving us with nothing but pain and suspicion. But as I stood there, in the ruins of my wedding, a memory surfaced. It was from years ago. We were teenagers. Clara had locked her diary, and I begged her to tell me the password. She just laughed. "It's the one thing in the world I hate the most," she had said with a smirk. "So I'll never forget it." I looked at the phone in my hand. Clara had a laptop, an iPad, a whole digital life. The police would have them, but they would be locked. They would need passwords. What if her old secret was still her new secret? What was the one thing she truly, deeply hated more than anything? My mind raced. She hated our small town. She hated working. She hated sharing a room with me. But there was something she hated more. It was our old dog, Buddy. He was a clumsy, happy golden retriever who adored Clara, but she couldn't stand him. She said he was too needy and too dumb. I remembered the cruel nickname she had for him, a name she only whispered when our parents weren't around, a name that broke my heart every time I heard it. It was mean and ugly, just like her secret heart. Could it really be that simple? Could her password be that hateful? I turned to my father. "Dad," I asked, my voice trembling with a new idea. "The police. Did they take her purse?" He nodded slowly. "They did. It's evidence." Cold fire lit inside me. I knew what I had to do. "We have to call Detective Miller," I said, my voice ringing with a certainty that shocked even me. "I think I know how to find everything. I know her password." We met Detective Miller at the police station an hour later. It was a cold, sterile place that smelled like old paper and cleaning supplies. My wedding dress felt ridiculous here. Clara's purse sat on a metal table, along with her laptop and phone, all sealed in clear plastic bags. My family stood behind me, a small, broken army. "A password from her childhood?" Detective Miller asked, looking doubtful. He was a kind man, but he dealt in facts, not feelings. "It's a long shot, Kimberly. People change their passwords all the time." I knew he was right, but I had a feeling about this. Clara's hate was the most consistent thing about her. "Just try it," I begged. "Please." He sighed and had an officer carefully take the laptop out of the bag. He powered it on, and the login screen appeared, asking for a password. "Okay," he said, turning to me. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, the memory tasting like poison. "Stupid Buddy 1, I said, spelling it out. My mother flinched at the cruel name for our beloved old dog. Michael put a supportive hand on my back. The detective typed it in slowly, his fingers clicking on the keyboard. He hit enter. The screen flashed red. "Access denied." My heart sank into my shoes. Was I wrong? Had all this been for nothing? Was Clara really gone, along with everyone's future? My father shook his head sadly, ready to give up. But Michael, my computer nerd Michael, stepped forward, looking closely at the phone's login screen, which had also lit up. "Wait," he said. "Look. The phone is asking for a 6-digit PIN, not a password," he pointed out. "And the laptop password hint says, my birthday." She used a different login for each device. He looked at me. "What's her birthday?" I told him the date, and he smiled a tiny, grim smile. "Of course. Let's try her birthday for the laptop." The detective typed in Clara's birthday, and the laptop unlocked. A picture of her on a tropical beach, smiling with a cocktail, filled the screen. But it was the phone we needed. "What about the PIN?" Detective Miller asked. Michael looked at me. "Think, Kim. Did she have a favorite number? A lucky number?" He didn't. Clara didn't believe in luck. She believed in taking. But then it hit me. Buddy's birthday. The dog she hated. It was a date she complained about every year because my parents always bought him a special steak. I told them the date. Michael typed the 6 numbers into the phone. Click. It unlocked. We were in. We found a folder on her phone labeled, My Future. Inside it wasn't just one file but dozens. Each one was named after a person. and I recognized the names. Mr. Henderson, the retired mailman. Mrs. Gable, my old piano teacher. They were all elderly people from our small town. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about my parents. This was bigger. We opened a file, and it was a complete profile. Bank accounts, social security numbers, passwords. My sister hadn't just stolen from our family. She had been preying on the most vulnerable people in our community for years. Then we saw the last file. It wasn't a person's name. The file was labeled Green Valley. We tapped it open. It was the local nursing home, the place where many of our friends' grandparents lived. And next to the name was a number so large it didn't seem real. It was the home's entire pension fund. She had stolen it all. The name Green Valley hung in the air like a disease. My sister hadn't just been greedy, she was a monster. She had planned to steal the last bit of peace from dozens of old people, leaving them with absolutely nothing. Detective Miller picked up his phone, his face grim. "This changes everything," he said. "This is a federal crime." But even he knew the truth. Clara was caught, but the money was a ghost. It was sitting in an offshore account, likely ready to be moved again the second she made her one phone call. We were watching the house burn down, but we couldn't get the water. We had won the battle, but she had already won the war. Then Michael, who was still looking at Clara's unlocked laptop, pointed at the screen. "She made a mistake," he whispered. "She was so arrogant, she made a mistake." In the corner of the screen was a minimized window. An internet browser. She had been so excited to ruin my wedding that she hadn't logged out. It was the website for a foreign bank, the kind with no rules and no questions. And there it was. One single account with a balance that made me feel sick. It was all there. My parents' retirement, Michael's savings, the nursing home's pension fund. A river of stolen lives, all pooled in one dark place. "We have to move it now," Michael said, his voice urgent. Her one phone call could be to an accomplice. Once it's gone from this account, it's gone forever. Detective Miller got on the phone with a cybercrime unit, putting the call on speaker. A voice on the other end told us exactly what we needed to do. To transfer the money out, we needed to answer 3 security questions. The first one appeared on the screen. "What was the name of your first pet?" My breath caught in my throat. Clara never had a pet. She hated animals. But I did. My first pet was a hamster named Pip. And Clara had hated him most of all. We typed in Pip. Correct. The second question. "What is your mother's maiden name?" "Izzy." The third question was the last lock on the door. "What was your childhood dream job?" I smiled a sad smile. She always told everyone she wanted to be a doctor. But I knew the real answer, the one she told me in secret when we were little girls. She wanted to be an actress. We typed actress. A new screen appeared. Transfer initiated. We all watched, holding our breath, as the giant number on the screen began to shrink. The money, all of it, was flowing out of her dark pool and back into a secure U.S. federal account. The river was returning home. She lost everything because the secret she shared with me, the sister she threw away, were the keys. My story is about a terrible pain, but it's also about finding the strength to stand up when you have been knocked down. It's about fighting for your family. If you have ever been hurt, or if you believe that good must always fight against evil, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Share this with someone who needs to see that even after the worst storm, the sun can shine again. Your support means the world to me. Clara will be in prison for a very long time. She won't hurt anyone else. My parents will get their retirement, and the people of Green Valley will be safe. My wedding was ruined, but Michael and I are stronger than ever. We lost a sister that day, but we saved a whole town. And sometimes a family is not just the one you are born into, but the one you are willing to fight for.